The reason growth management in Sarasota has a question mark after it is because there's really a question of whether there is good growth management in Sarasota County these days. I'm going to try and give a little bit of context and then present a few of the challenges, and then of course the jewel of the crown of Sarasota County, Siesta Key, is one of the biggest challenges. As Sean mentioned, population growth and new development have been the top-ranked issue of concern of surveyed residents. But I have to correct her. It's not just for the past 4 years, it's for the past 10 years, except in 1 year it was number 2. So that's a pretty shocking track record for concerns about growth management in Sarasota County. In two of the years, in 2019 and 2022, the survey measured something called an expectation gap. And it looked at people rank their expectations of effective growth management policies compared to what they thought the reality was that they had encountered. A measurement over 2, and here you've got 2.7 and 2.4, a measurement over 2 means there are serious problems in not meeting expectations. So even though there have been 10 years of this being identified as a very significant issue for Sarasota County residents, it doesn't seem that they're making any progress on it at all. Growth management in Sarasota County has challenges. Some of the ones we're going to hit on tonight are the mega hotels proposed on Siesta Key, the Celery Fields threat from high-density residential development, and Lakewood Ranch expansion into over 4,000 acres of northeastern Sarasota County rural and ag lands. Growth management needs to be defined. What is growth management? It's a useful tool for focusing planning efforts, tying the provision of needed public infrastructure to the development. And Florida was one of the leaders in establishing statewide growth management policies. It may be especially necessary in places experiencing faster than average growth and pressure to convert agricultural lands to other areas and traffic congestion problems. So now let's look and see what comprehensive planning is. Comprehensive planning is where a community establishes the long-range vision for its future. And I emphasize the word community because the community is us. The community is not any subset of the county, such as developers, such as manufacturers. It's everyone in the county. It's the basis for the land use regulations that actually help implement the comprehensive plan. Land development regulations are where the rubber meets the road. They have to be consistent with the comprehensive plan because that's what they are intended to implement. So you come down, have growth management policies, you come down to the comprehensive plan, which are the defined objectives and goals for the character of a community, and then the land development regulations are supposed to implement that. They range from subdivision process for open lands, setbacks, sidewalk sizes, number of parking spaces needed. It's really where all the details land. Sarasota County's LDRs are now called the Unified Development Code and combine zoning provisions with the detailed land development regulations. So you'll hear people refer to the UDC, and in Sarasota County, that's the development regulations. How did we get here? Florida has had a long history of varying levels of state-mandated comprehensive planning and growth management. They had a number of things before 1975. These are just a few of the highlights. There were many other acts and amendments made other than these. But 1975 was the first year that Florida required local governments to do comprehensive plans. Then in 1985, the legislature increased the state mandates, state review of proposed comprehensive plan, and increased growth management requirements, particularly focusing a lot on concurrency. Concurrency is the public facilities should be in place before the new residents arrive and open the door to their home. In 2011, a big shift. The state adopted what I think was mistakenly termed the Community Planning Act because it basically gutted growth management as we knew it in the state of Florida. It transferred almost all the control back to local governments and limited state review to only matters of state policy importance. So things like agriculture, it's supposed to be concerned about those. It's supposed to be concerned about the state road system. So it's the review by the state of comprehensive plans done at the local level is very restricted and very narrow now. And then to add more burden to residents, in 2019, the legislature adopted a statute that shifts the costs of a challenge of a development order. So if you challenge a development order on the basis that it's inconsistent with the comprehensive plan and you lose, you don't just pay your costs, you pay everybody's costs. You could have had a perfectly valid case, not be frivolous, do nothing wrong, and you could be liable for everyone's cost. And in 2022, they also applied that cost shifting provision to challenges of comprehensive plan amendments of inconsistency. So those two things have had a very significant chilling effect on the ability of citizens to hold their local governments to account in terms of whether or not the development approvals that they're processing really are consistent with the goals and objectives that the community has established in the comprehensive plan. This is just a nice little cartoon of the changes. It was called the Department of Community Affairs. Sounds nice and warm. And then in 2011, it became the Department of Economic Opportunity. And just recently, the reviewing state department is now called Florida Commerce. It was the Department of Commerce, and now apparently they're just calling it Florida Commerce. So that's just a nutshell of what's changed over time. Sarasota County's comprehensive plan is a very voluminous document, and it consists of text, and that's what it's called. Everybody else could call it words or whatever, but in the land planning area, you call it text. And the text includes a hierarchy of provisions related to the vision for the community. It has goals. The goals define the big picture, the long-range vision. Then you have objectives. The objectives are slightly more directed in terms of how do we achieve a given goal. Then the more specific directives are in the policies. So you typically have a lot more policies than you do objectives and goals in the plan. And it has multiple chapters. There's one chapter on environment, another chapter on transportation. So each one of those chapters is going to have a whole set of goals, policies, and objectives. There are also important maps in the comprehensive plan. The most important one that you'll hear about is called the FLUM, Future Land Use Map. And it is what attaches land uses to the lands in the county. So it shows what should be rural, what should be commercial, what should be residential, and that is actually an object that if somebody wants to do something different than what's in that map, they must file for an amendment to the map. You also have text amendments. The text is really almost more the Constitution than the maps are, because the text is going to affect, in most cases, everybody in the whole county, every property and every piece of land. The map amendments will only affect the changes on the land that they actually apply for the change on. So as Lourdes will talk later about text amendments, it's a little sneaky. You think they're just making a change in the context of the rest of their amendment, but they can affect the entire county. The 2050 plan that you've probably heard a lot about over the years is just one chapter in the comprehensive plan. For a long time, everybody was sort of talking about the 2050 plan replaced the comprehensive plan. No, it's just one chapter. It's one very specific growth management approach that's an optional way to develop. This is language directly out of the introduction to the comprehensive plan, And I felt it summarized best what our comprehensive plan is supposed to do. To direct and achieve coordinated harmonious development and land use in a manner which will permit planning for adequate community facilities, protect the environment, and promote the public health, safety, convenience, prosperity, and general welfare of Sarasota County's residents and visitors. Again, it's not being done for the developers, it's being done for the residents and the visitors. And that was from the updated comp plan that was done in 2015 and adopted in 2016. I thought it might be interesting to see historically what some of Sarasota County's comprehensive plan documents look like. So this is the first Sarasota County long-range plan map, and it was done in 1975, which was even before the state required it. So Sarasota County was actually a shining example of growth management and comprehensive planning years ago. I used to talk about Sarasota County to other clients of mine across the country because they were the best. They had the best planners, they had the best planning, they had the best staff. It's not how things work today, but so then we have the first Growth Management Act Future Land Use Map, the FLUM, the 1981, and this was the comp plan that was called epoxy. So if you hear somebody talking about epoxy, that was this one, and that was what the 2017 update replaced. So let's talk a little bit about 2050 plan, because it affects a lot of the developments, particularly out east, which is my bailiwick. 2050 plan came about because planning staff identified that the development in the area of, here we go. So this red line is the urban services boundary, and it establishes the area that was supposed to be the limit to where the county was going to invest in urban facilities, particularly water and sewer, heavier traveled roads, higher level volumes and stuff like that. So staff identified that in 1996 that they were not going to be able to accommodate the projected development that the state agency was allocating to our county. So they began looking at options for how they would accommodate this additional development. And everybody says, oh, you have to build more land you make available for development, the more population they allocate to you. So it's sort of the more you accommodate, the more you're going to get. So they looked at what can we do with these areas. You may know that in Manatee County, they have an urban service boundary also, and they're in the process right now of moving it incrementally. And what county staff feared was that if they did that, we'd end up like this. It would all be uniform subdivisions, hard to service, drawn out areas for public facilities. So you can see the state park, and that's pretty much it. So they came up with an idea of directing development to more concentrated areas and try to preserve more greenway, more wildlife space, more agriculture. So this was sort of the vision they were going after when they developed the 2050 plan. So there were laudable goals for it. I think it just hasn't worked out quite the way everybody hoped. So three of the main purposes behind the selling points, I guess, that we were told on the 2050 plan was that we were going to get more open space, connected greenways, preserve rural character. The developed areas were going to maybe higher densities, but they would embrace new urbanism ideas, more, generate less traffic, provide all the facilities they needed within the area. They used to be called new towns. Then they became new urbanization and villages. So it'd be compact, walkable, and mixed use. And then everything was supposed to be fiscally neutral. I question that much of any of this is still left in the 2050 plan and how it's been implemented and changed over time. The county has allowed developers to rewrite our comprehensive plan, text and maps. So instead of the vision being developed from the public, the vision is being placed on the public by the developers. So it's being formed by private gain rather than public good. They've reduced affordable housing provisions, reduced required open space and buffers, allowed incompatible adjacent land uses, minimized the protection of wildlife habitat, discounted rural character, replaced 2050 plan with new urbanism with standard subdivisions. That's particularly relevant to the Lakewood Ranch Southeast project I'm going to talk about. And they repeatedly ignored failing roadways and existing and future congestion. So that's the situation we're in today. What can you and I do? There's quite a bit we can do. Get involved on specific projects. Go talk to the planners in advance of the hearings. They'll often find that the planners will discuss things more fully with you in a private meeting than they would in public. Write to planning commissioners and county commissioners. Let them know you're opposed to something and why. Appear at public hearings. Provide focused testimony, and the type of testimony you need to provide is going to vary depending on whether it's a rezone, a comp plan amendment, a special exception, or any number of other things. You have to tailor it for each of those situations. But more importantly than anything, we need to elect people that will listen to the concerns of residents and help achieve. So research your candidates. It's very easy to find out who's getting their funding from the developers. It's very small up there, but there's the elections office has a website, has a link. You can do. This will be available on the league's thing, so it may be a little too hard to see up there. So find out where they're getting their money. If they're mostly being funded by developer organizations, PACs that support other developers and other like-minded elected officials, then maybe that's not who you want to give your money to. And maybe that's not who you want to give your vote to. Give money to candidates that you like in any district. They need your help. They need your money. They cannot run campaigns without money. I don't care what denomination they are. Personally, I want somebody who's going to listen, do a good job, do the right thing. If they're in your district, vote for them and also give them money. But the main thing is donate to their campaigns because they desperately need the money. They're outspent and outfunded right now. In addition, support citizen groups and organizations that are fighting to preserve our comprehensive plan. Join email lists to get information. Participate in any way that you can. I'm going to provide a list of contacts of blogs, websites, and some different community organizations. I just didn't get it finished today, so I'll give it and let them post it on their website. This issue has become so critical that recently a new group has formed called Sarasota Citizen Action Network. And we're hoping, and Tana Trullo and Lourdes and I are all part of the trying to get this off the ground. We're really trying to help make connections and information between people across the county. We're all facing similar onslaughts of development, traffic congestion, loss of water quality, loss of wildlife. If we can help each other, our voices will be stronger, and I think we have a better chance of being listened to. Oh, and also, I'm sorry, I forgot about you, Rob. He's part of the organization too. So we're just getting it off the ground. It's one of the email lists I'll include on the page I send to League of Women Voters. Because again, if we work together, we are going to be able to make a much stronger voice and work across districts, work across the entire county. So we have high hopes for that organization as it develops. But again, find a commissioner candidate you can support, donate money, give them your vote, and don't just restrict yourself to district boundaries. Single member districts, I believe, are a great idea, but don't let it limit who you talk to. Don't let it limit who you expect to stand up and do the right thing for Sarasota County residents. On to some current hotspots. And I didn't show Siesta Key on this map because I figured you pretty much all know where that is. If you don't, talk to Lourdes. So, to orient you, this is I-75. This is University. This is Fruitville Road. And here's Verna Road, and here's the end of the world as we know it, the edge of the county line. So what we have here is we have the Celery Fields being threatened by a DR Horton rezone for high-density residential development. We have a high-hat commercial mining permit that's going to be just across the, so Lorraine is going to extend south of Fruitville, adjacent to the Founders Club, just on the other side of that. 10 to 20 years anticipated operation over, I believe, memory over 4 million cubic yards of fill, so there would be trucks and noise and everything for at least 10 years, probably 20. We did have a small success on this one on January 10th with the board. Residents showed up and made very strong arguments about the dangers on Fruitville Road and that it cannot accommodate that kind of traffic concentrated in that area. The board sort of listened. They let the applicant ask for a continuance to go figure out if there's some other way they can find an access point for this. But the board pretty clearly said, this is not where you're going to put your access. Then we have my personal favorite, Lakewood Ranch Southeast. And Lakewood Ranch Southeast is over a 4,000 acre extension of Lakewood Ranch. It basically consumes about 1/3 of the rest of the open agricultural lands in northeastern Sarasota County. So Lakewood Ranch Southeast was approved, the comprehensive plan amendment text and maps was approved by the board in October of 2022, but it's not effective yet because 2 residents in Burn Creek, they're also founding board members of Keep the Country, Inc. with me, filed a challenge that the comp plan amendment was inconsistent with our comprehensive plan. Becky Ayesh, Old Mayaca, longtime resident and head of the Mayaca Community Club, also joined in that litigation. We had a 5-day hearing in July and August of last year. Unfortunately, the administrative law judge did not agree with us, and her preliminary order finds in favor of Sarasota County on this. We have filed exceptions. We believe she made some legal errors in her order, and we have filed exceptions. It will now be reviewed by the Florida Commerce. So we probably know which way they'll probably go on this. But then there is, we plan to appeal to the courts. Since there's some significant legal issues, we feel like we have a very good basis for making that appeal, and we'll continue that fight. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of a flavor of what we're losing out east. And this is our everyday. This is my 24 hours. In fact, the black and white horse there is fine. The rural lifestyle, lands are being converted to urban sprawl, and we're losing our quality of life. The noise has increased significantly. We're already experiencing noise pollution, light pollution, and we also serve as great habitat for wildlife. They share, as you saw on that first slide, they share the pastures with our animals. This is all from Keep the Country Country. Go to sarasotacountry.net for more information. And I believe we provide significant stormwater retention and treatment capacity in our fields. And as those fields are filled and raised to build development, I really believe there are going to be some significant stormwater issues down the line. So this is what we'll lose in terms of the agriculture. We've got a a hay store out there that decorates his round bales for every holiday. So just to add a little humor, that's him out in the field. So then we go to the Celery Fields. Celery Fields was I call it a serendipitous gift to the county. It was a stormwater facility for regional collection of stormwater. Used to actually be Celery Fields. And it became a wonderful habitat for birds, and it's become nationally and internationally known for birding. Serious birders as well as people like me that just go out and enjoy seeing them fly around. D.R. Horton wants a rezone to place 260 to 272 houses on lands adjacent to one of the wildlife habitat areas that's rather sensitive. You can go to SarasotaAudubon.com for more information. They have a very good, position paper on it that you can read there and get in touch with them. And now I'm going to turn it over. Well, I guess I'll let Sean introduce her, but Lourdes is going to talk to us about the jewel of the crown, Siesta Key.
So that was very touching for me. I'm pretty much a native, and I was a news reporter for WXLT and WWSB in the 70s and early 80s, and I was there at all the county commission meetings when they were doing all this heavy lifting, and I was there when phosphate mining wanted to come to the eastern county, and they had buckets of money. And the county commission said, nope. And I was, there when, they planned to, with the Celery Fields to create that, to hold stormwater so that it wouldn't all surge into the bay and create pollution. And now it's like one of the best birding sites in the country, or maybe the world, and people come all the time. And then, I don't know how many of you know the story of the mountain, but they thought they could sell all that dirt, and then they had that huge mountain. They didn't know what they were going to do with it, and people started biking and running on it, so they made a park out of it. So it's kind of hard to look at, my sister rode horses out east. It's hard to sit and see where it's going right now. So I think probably most of you know, Lourdes Ramirez just made the Sarasota Herald Tribune's list of 15 locals who've made a big impact in Sarasota. She had landmark victories in court over proposed hotels on the Key, and now the fight continues. She was born to Puerto Rican parents in Manhattan, moved here to Sarasota in 1999, became involved in local government zoning issues through her work groups such as the Alliance for Siesta Key, the Siesta Key Association, and the League of Women Voters. She currently is the president of the Siesta Key community and just announced she is joining HARD Protect Siesta Key, whose mission is to promote good governance to enhance the public health, safety, and preservation of the quality of life for residents, visitors, and property owners on Siesta Key through educational awareness, advocacy, and if necessary, appropriate legal action. So Lourdes is going to cover some great ground here. It's a pleasure having you here. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me out to speak to you about this really important issue, and thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this, because it's something that we all should be paying attention to. So really thank you. And I see a gentleman in the back who said something at a county commission meeting that I think it's so appropriate. He said at a meeting about Siesta Key, it's the many versus the money. And it's so true, right, John? It's so true. This is the situation we're, facing. And it's unfortunate. It shouldn't be a citizen like myself taking a government to court to make them follow the rules. Yeah. It's not the way it's supposed to work. It should be our elected officials standing up for us, making sure that everything they do is for our best interests, not their campaign contributors. But why is it, what's happening on Siesta Key and why this is so important? I'm so glad Susan went through the details. So when I tell you what happened on Siesta Key, it'll make a lot of sense. Remember when she had that whole list of things that they took away from the comprehensive plan in the last 15 years? Well, there's one obstacle developers are facing today. And that's the one obstacle that's affecting Siesta Key and all of us. And that's public safety. They got rid of the wildlife, the trees, fiscal neutrality, the greenways. They got rid of all that, but now they got stuck on the fact that our lives are getting in their way. And I'll explain that as I'm going down the pond we're facing with Siesta Key. The one thing about Siesta Key that a lot of people are not aware is that Siesta Key has the highest, most intensive density in all of Sarasota County. There are some pockets in the city of Sarasota, but when it comes to the number of density per square mile, Siesta Key has the highest. And that's been true for decades. It turned out in the 1940s, when Sarasota County started to look at what's happening on Siesta Key. They're like, oh, there's too many things being platted, too many things being approved. They were a little worried. So in 1955, they said, okay, we need a zoning code. That's the first zoning code ever created in Sarasota County, was for Siesta Key in 1955 because they wanted a maximum limit to be built out there. Then they took that zoning code and they adopted countywide in 1960. In the 70s and 80s, they were looking at Siesta Key. So we have a zoning code. We started having a comprehensive plan in 1975. Like, we need to remove people from Siesta Key because it's unsafe. Hurricane evacuations were a concern. Even the capacity of the bridges was a concern. There was a 1979 Siesta Key study where they were worried about the capacity of the North Bridge, saying, I think we reached capacity, and the bridge was only 10 years old at that point. So they were really worried. So they started doing things like building moratoriums. And they did down zonings, incentives to get people to build along several lots instead of building on each lot. By 1989, they said, okay, we can't do anymore. We tried our best. I think they took off 1,000 units out of the 12,000 units out there. So right now we have about 11,000 units on 2.3 square miles. And they said, all right, we're not going to add any more bridges. They thought about it. In the 1970s, said, maybe we need a third bridge. Couldn't afford it. So they said, all right, we'll just freeze the density and the zoning on Siesta Key as of this year, 1989. And that's a really important date for us on Siesta Key. So the mantra since 1989 has been no more increases in density, intensity on Siesta Key. And I've been doing this for 20 years, working on Siesta Key issues as well as countywide issues. And I've always been told, don't worry about it. We're not touching the policies for Siesta Key because, it's built out. That's what I keep hearing. And there is one very important policy, which I won in both cases. It's called Policy 2.9.1, and it says for hurricane evacuation purposes and mitigation for disasters, Sarasota County cannot increase density or intensity on the barrier islands. It was pretty clear, and that's where we had the issue. So about 2016, so I've been doing this for 20 years, in 2016 I started hearing about these hotels. And I was starting to go to the public workshops, and then I was reminding the developers you can increase density and intensity on the key. And they're like, no, we're talking about setbacks. But I kept hearing that they wanted more. And so I started to attend those meetings. I went to the public workshop, went to the public meetings, and they stuck to what they wanted to reduce the setbacks. So they want to go up 9 stories, right? 85 feet. And they were supposed to have a step back after 35 feet. So it's not straight up. They reduced it to 2 feet. And we fought it. We didn't win. But that's what they said. We're just talking setbacks. Of course, 2019 comes along. And that's why we started hearing about this proposed change to allow hotels to have no density. So this is the key. In the beginning, the developers did think about changing the comprehensive plan, that policies that do not increase density and intensity on the barrier islands, but they didn't have the votes. They know what their county commissioners who they contribute to will vote there or not. And in our charter, it says if you're going to increase density and intensity, you need a supermajority vote. So they need 4 out of 5 votes. They didn't think they had the 4. So they thought about a workaround. They said, well, how do we do this? We want this mega hotels, multiple. So how do we do this? Okay. In the zoning code, we're supposed to implement the comp plan. Why don't we say that transient accommodations, hotels, that density, well, any rooms don't count towards density. Okay, so we can increase, at that point, the maximum density for hotels on the Barrier Islands and throughout Sarasota County was 26 units per acre, right? And it's been like that for decades. But they thought, well, if we say hotel rooms don't count towards density, we can go from 26 units per acre to 170 units, and we won't violate the policy because we didn't increase density. So it's a game for them, right? So that's what they did. They went to the county commission, saying, change the zoning code so that hotel rooms don't count towards density, so we can have any number of rooms we want, and then start approving these hotels. And they approved 3 hotels. The first one in the village for 170 units on less than 1 acre. And then there was 2 others at about 120 units each. So, of course, I'm listening, and I complained. And I've been saying to the county commission and the planning commission and staff, you're violating the comprehensive plan. Of course, I was completely ignored. And I wasn't the only one. I was so glad to see that there were so many people going to the county commission meeting and saying, you're violating the comprehensive plan. And of course, they ignored it. They adopted the change in the ordinance, and they started approving hotels right away. What they didn't expect is that somebody will sue them. And that's what I did. And I'm glad that when we went to the state court, so the first thing to do is to sue in state court because they changed that zoning code saying that density doesn't count. So that's a violation of state statute that says any land development codes has to comply with the comprehensive plan. Then I sued Sarasota County over the approved hotel in the village. And as you know, the courts agreed the county violated the comprehensive plan. It was pretty clear. Even the state judge said the experts who testified that this is how it's supposed to work were not credible. So I was so glad to see that, I can tell you. Now keep in mind, Siesta Key is 2.3 square miles, and it has only a 2-lane road that connects 2 bridges, which is why public safety is so important. We're already overpopulated. So to protect those policies, and there were about 8 to 10 policies that protect Siesta Key, and we brought that up. The county only violated 1 in 1 case and 3 in the state case, but still, there's a lot of policies that protect Siesta Key. Now I'm going to try to see if I get this to work. I think anyone who tries to get on Siesta Key is familiar with this. If there's no shortage of pictures. I was looking for the one in which an ambulance got stuck trying to get on the key, and I couldn't find it right away. So I want to talk about what's happening now. What's being proposed. The state ruled that the county violated the comprehensive plan when it comes to the statute in April. Well, apparently, starting about July, Vendors and Development started going to the county staff and started already requesting meetings to change the comprehensive plan. Note that the circuit court case didn't ruled on until August, so they didn't even wait for that. They're just like, we're going to change the comprehensive plan, and we're either going to eliminate or change dramatically all those policies she mentioned in the state court case that protect Siesta Key. So that's what's happening. And this is one of the policies. Now, this is not the 2.9.1 that says, don't increase density, because I wanted to point out something different on this one. This is the before, okay? So this is our chapter 6. We have a coastal disaster management chapter, and our coastal objective is safe and timely evacuations. Very clear. And of course, this is to protect public safety during an emergency evacuations, because you can't just say it's hurricanes. It could be a lot of things. You don't know. You don't know what nature's going to throw our way. they have to either reduce or maintain emergency evacuation clearance time, as well as adequate roadway system and ensuring enough shelter space. So I want to show you what Benderson's thinking of changing. This is the same policy. So they to protect public safety, blah, blah, blah. So reduce and maintain emergency evacuation, oops. Sorry. Okay. For residents. Now let me ask you, how are they planning to hold back the visitors, employees, and delivery people from evacuating during an emergency? I mean, are they going to start giving, like, those of us who are residents, we're going to have a tag? I mean, of course, the idea that not only they put that in there, I just can't believe they put that in there. How are visitors going to feel? How about part-time residents? How about renters? That they're actually thinking, we'll maintain and reduce evacuation times for the residents only. But well. And then, now I know this is part of state statutes, but I can't believe they put it in here. And or, if you see that, and or provide appropriate mitigation. And appropriate mitigation could be payment of money. Of course, that payment of money could be limited to whatever the developer impacts. So, they're going to limit it to the 147 rooms for that hotel or whatever. They're not going to really mitigate it for the impact on us, okay? There's a lot more to this that they can mitigate. That turns my stomach, frankly, I really think, and this is not the only policy where, Sarasota County has to consider that, to protect public safety, they can change it so it can be limiting it or reducing it or weakening it for the residents. And like I said, the policy that I won, the 2.9.1, this is do not increase density and intensity of air. It starts off with, for hurricane evacuation planning and disaster mitigation efforts, do not increase density and intensity on the Barrow Islands. This is public safety. We're not talking about, I get it, we don't want to lose the charm of Siesta Key Village or Siesta Key. We don't want to increase traffic. But all these policies have to do with our lives. We're talking about evacuating in an emergency vehicles coming to our homes, or maybe we have to go to a medical appointment. Talking something that's about the looks. I mean, it's important, but they're actually considering putting our lives at risk. And that's what the biggest problem we have. So, and like I said, this is the last frontier for them. If they can get away with putting Siesta Key's lives, people's lives at risk, we can't win anything from now on. I mean, we tried. It's not that we haven't tried to stop them from getting rid of the greenways, the wildlife corridors, the trees. We've been fighting all along, but this is over the top in my opinion. So what does it do for you? Not only do you have to worry about public safety, because think of it too, I mean, the ones who are in the really bad shape when it comes to evacuations are the tourists, are the visitors. They don't know where the shelters are. The airports, like Idalia, they closed the airport 24 hours for Idalia supposedly hits, and you should see the flooding that happens on Siesta Key with Idalia. They closed the North Bridge and South Bridge for some time. So what are the visitors are going to do? They don't know where a shelter is. Most of the hotels and short-term rentals are on the coast. So if you're going to try to get them anywhere else, where are they going to go? Of course, they're going to get in your way, too, if you're trying to evacuate or if you're looking for a shelter. So that's a danger to you. Also, a problem for you, for us, I should say, is the fact that the county only owns about 20% of the public beaches out there, or the beaches out there, is public. You're adding hundreds of more tourists on those beaches. And if you've gone to the beach lately, it's towel to towel. It's bad enough you can't find parking. You're not going to ever find space when we have all these tourists. And I'm not crazy about the addition to what they now call rooftop amenities, which is rooftop bars. They said rooftop bars in the beginning, and apparently there was a backlash, so they now call it rooftop amenities. But, you know, I heard about the terror, the horror of the rooftop bars in downtown Sarasota. I don't want to see it on Siesta Key. You know, we have enough bars, and we don't need it on the roof, you know. And for one of the things I was concerned about too is the fact that they had on Siesta Key 3 locations last time: the North Village, Wells Fargo site, and South Village as concerns. But now they added Turtles, because before Turtle Beach, their zoning didn't allow for transient accommodation, or not the beach itself, I'm sorry, Turtles, the restaurant area. And now it's included. And I'm saying, you know a hotel's gonna go in there. They have waterfront, they have access to a beach, you know a hotel's gonna go there. So now it's getting even worse. So again, I'm going to reiterate what Susan said, what you can do. Please show up at the public hearings. I think they need to see it. And I know a lot of people said, well, last time there were 900 emails and you had a packed house and the county still voted for it, but I think it can make a difference. So I really hope you come to the county commission meetings and of course send emails. And I do now belong to a new group, Protect Siesta Key. When I filed the lawsuit, it was under my name, I did it, and I couldn't talk to anybody because when anyone was involved in a lawsuit, the lawyers will tell you, don't say anything. So I suffered alone. And it was a difficult 2 years, I have to admit. But now that we won, and there's another plaintiff, there was 3 lawsuits, my 2, and a 3rd lawsuit that just recently got final judgment in their favor. And we're just joining forces with our knowledge, experience, and our resources, because I have a great lawyer. He's terrific, Richard Grosso. Just a quick story, because I know we want to do Q&A. Mr. Grosso, 20 years ago, handled a case that is a landmark case. In that particular case, there was a single-family district and area, and somebody wanted to build a multi-family apartment building right next to the single-family homes, and in conflict to the comprehensive plan. Well, the county commission approved it. It's not Sarasota, it's on the other coast, and the neighborhood sued. And what it turned out to happen was, while they were in litigation, the developer says, I'm building these, and he started to build it. In the end, it turned out the county ruled against the developer and the county and said it did violate the comprehensive plan, and the developer said, oh well, built it anyway. That did not make the judge happy, and so Richard Grosso went after him, and in the end, the courts forced them to tear down $3 million worth of apartment buildings. That illustrates 2 things. A, I got a great lawyer. And 2, it shows that how important the comprehensive plan is. For some judge to say, no, you tear it down. You're not going to build your way out of a comprehensive plan compliance. And that's why we need to defend this. We need to defend this because we really make sure the county knows. And we're done. We have enough. We need to defend our, I say Siesta Key, but we have to defend our comprehensive plan, and especially when it comes to our public safety. So that's all I had, and I'm sure we have some